So welcome, everyone. My name's Larry. I'm kind of informally connected with Auroville and the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, kind of traveling back and forth between the two, and having a kind of close association with Savitri Bhavan over the years. The title of my talk is Growing Flowers and States of Consciousness. And I have to admit that the first part about growing flowers was kind of an afterthought. I'm mainly interested in growing states of consciousness. But since I've put it, I thought I would say a little about growing flowers. Now, I was a psychologist before coming to India, not a horticulturist, so my understanding of growing flowers is pretty limited. What I do know, however, is that when you want to plant a flower, you have to first prepare the soil in which it's to be planted. Now, the earth represents the material principle. Everything in nature is a representation of states of consciousness, because everything is a manifestation of consciousness. In truth, everything is a manifestation of the mother's consciousness, the original consciousness force, which is the origin of all. Plants are representations of the vital consciousness, the life force. Animals are representations of the higher levels of the vital consciousness in which there is a beginning of mind intermixed with it. And human beings are representations of the mental principle, evolving and emerging out of matter and life. And the mother has said that flowers represent the psychic principle, the soul element, in the vegetable kingdom. Now, when we prepare the soil to plant a young seedling, we first dig and loosen the soil and clean it of stones and debris. And it's symbolic of what we have to do with our own consciousness when we want to plant these higher states of consciousness that are associated with flowers. The physical part of our consciousness is ordinarily rigid and typically has hard, stony structures, accumulations of fixed habits that are unreceptive to change or to any higher vibrations or states of being. So in order to receive and develop these higher states, we have to break up these fixed formations of our physical consciousness in order to create some space for the higher states to manifest and grow within us. Next, it's good if we add some physical nutrients to the soil, some compost or natural fertilizer. And this substance is generally a mixture of vital and physical properties. Of course, our own physical nature, too, is a mixture of vital and physical properties. We're not just made of inert matter, we're made of living matter. And in order to remain alive, our body needs a continual supply of vital energy and nutrients, which we normally take in through food. So in order to receive the higher states of consciousness, symbolized by flowers, represented by flowers, we need to keep our physical bodies fit and healthy through proper eating and rest and exercise. In place of our normal tendency towards inertia and laziness and unhealthy habits, we must substitute these healthy daily habits and activities in order to provide a strong and vibrant physical basis for these higher states of being. And once we prepare the soil and plant the seedling firmly into the fertilized earth, we have to water it. And water typically symbolizes consciousness. Sri Aurobindo said that rain is a symbol of the descent of grace or the higher consciousness. So we could say that adding water to the plant is like adding consciousness to it. If we would like to nurture higher states of consciousness in ourselves, we need to give them conscious attention so that they grow. It has been said that everything responds to the attention given to it. And usually the more attention we give to something, the more it increases and grows. So the more attention that we give to our spiritual development, to the development of higher states of being, represented by flowers, the more quickly they will blossom within us. If we're always preoccupied with the externalities of life, we might prosper outwardly, but inwardly we might become depleted. So in addition to our own attention and care of these still young and growing states of consciousness within us, the role of grace is also necessary for these higher states to flower. And in addition to water, a plant usually needs plenty of light and sunshine to grow. The source of physical light is, of course, the sun, and the sun is the physical symbol of the supermental consciousness. The supermind is also the source of the mental consciousness, and we could say that mind represents the separated rays of the supermind. The supramental light and force governs the whole manifestation, but particularly within human beings, it works through the intervening layers of the intuitive mind and the intellectual mind. And therefore, to help nurture these higher states of being within us, we can concentrate our intellect and intuition upon them. And to put it in more practical terms, we should concentrate on them. And even more practically, we can go into the individual meditation chambers of the petals of the Matra Mandir and concentrate on those particular qualities, which themselves have been symbolized by various flowers, as we will see. The mother has indicated that the significances that she's given to flowers are a combination of precise mental vibrations with the more psychic and vital vibrations of the flowers. And here's what she said specifically. That is how I have given a meaning to flowers and plants. There is a kind of identification with the vibration, a perception of the quality it represents, and little by little, through a kind of approximation, sometimes this comes suddenly, occasionally it takes time, there is a coming together of these vibrations, which are of a vital emotion order and the vibration of mental thought. And if there is a sufficient harmony, one has a direct perception of what the plant may signify. So in this manner, the mother named 898 types of flowers. Most of these names each representing a particular state of consciousness. And she also said, on the plane of matter, they are the most open to my influence. I can transmit a state of consciousness more easily to a flower than to a man. It is very receptive, though it does not know how to formulate its experience to itself because it lacks a mind. But the pure psychic consciousness in it is instinctive to it. And then she said, when I give them, I give you states of consciousness. The flowers are the mediums, and it all depends on your receptivity, whether they are effective or not. So these quotations from the mother suggest that the significances and messages of the flowers have come about through some original psychic vibration in the flowers themselves and something that the mother has infused into them. This something that she added was a precise significance, a mental significance, and also some aspect of her consciousness and force, which together formulated a specific state of consciousness to which the flower was receptive. This state could then be transmitted to a person through the flower, depending on the person's receptivity. The fact that many of the significances pertain to particularly human states, for example, to the mind and knowledge, to the will, to emotions, to desire, to the mastery of sex, indicate that the states are not simply or purely the vibrations of the flowers, but are states associated with her action with the flowers. Actually, when one reads through the significances she has given to the flowers, it becomes clear that these states are states of her own consciousness. For many of them could have only been experienced by her or Sri Aurobindo. For example, here are some of the names of flowers that she's given: beginning of the supramental realization, supramental action, supramentalized mind, mind of light acting in matter, supramentalized psychological perfection. Now we might ask whether this infusion of force into the flowers occurred only at the individual level, when she was giving a specific flower to a specific person at a given time and place. But it seems to me that the mother's infusion of states of consciousness into the flower should not be limited to these individual personal encounters. While she might have transmitted specific states or forces through flowers to individuals on specific occasions, it seems to me that she wouldn't go through the labor that she went through to name all of these 900 flowers for such a limited objective. It seems to me that she infused her own higher spiritual vibrations into the related vital and psychic vibrations of the various types of flowers on a universal level. She may have done this by contacting the unique vibration of a particular flower, but then through her action on that flower infused her consciousness into the universal type. Now there's one phenomena that's been mentioned by Sri Aurobindo and the mother that supports this possibility. They have mentioned that the various sadhaks that they called to the yoga and to the ashram each represented different difficulties. The mother even once referred to them as different impossibilities that needed to be solved. And Sri Aurobindo and mother worked on these different obstacles in human nature through their spiritual action on the particular sadhaks that she had called. And it also suggests that whatever progress that we make in the yoga due to the divine grace is also a progress that is transferred or made for the divine in humanity as a whole. So I would submit that although that through the mother's work with the flowers, she has infused into each type of flower, into their own psychic and vital vibrations, her own vibrations with which they were compatible and receptive. And that these types of flowers have the potentiality of putting us into contact with these particular states of consciousness, which she has represented by the names and messages that she's given to them. Richard Pearson, who worked with the mother on naming the flowers, has said that one of the greatest gifts from the mother, from her work with the flowers, was the commentaries that she provided for the various flowers for the book Flowers and Their Messages during 1970 and 71. He indicated that the mother would work on about 5 flowers each day at a fixed time, and give the messages orally, which were translated by Temi into English. Richard and Narad worked together on the book, which was first published in 1973. These commentaries that she gave on the flowers are very brief statements, usually just a sentence or two, which expand on the name given to the flower and convey something of the unique quality of that vibration or state that the flower represents. For example, for the flower integral prayer, she gave the commentary, "The whole being is concentrated in a single prayer to the divine." For the flower psychic aspiration, she gave the commentary, "Constant, regular, organized, gentle, and patient at the same time, resists all opposition, overcomes all difficulties." Whereas the mother gave most of these commentaries in 1970, 1971, her work with flowers had already begun much earlier. Apparently, she had first realized the potential of flowers to receive and transmit forces when she was working with two great occultists in Algeria, Max and Alma Tean, back around 1905. She was given a locket with some flower petals in it, which she kept around her neck. And one day she noticed that she was feeling very depleted, that she had substantially less energy than she usually felt. Just then she noticed that the locket had opened and all the flower petals had fallen out. It was then that she realized that flowers could hold and transmit force. And then somewhat later, 1929, 1930, as Richard Pearson has also explained, she had given this significance to a flower she called connection between the supramental and the material being. It was a gold, yellow, mottled red canna. Another called the body consciousness, undergoing the supramental transformation. This was a large sunflower. And another she named the supramental light in the cells. So we see from these examples that already by 1930, the mother was in contact with the supramental consciousness, was bringing it into the physical, and was associating these very subtle vibrations with particular types of flowers. Richard Pearson also has nicely articulated a feeling that I also had regarding the mother's work with flowers and the giving of these significances. He wrote, "It is my growing conviction that she has manifested a complete integral yoga for all times to come, complementing Sri Aurobindo's stupendous work, and in the most material form, truly sanctioning the future." And it's really this idea that inspired the subject of this talk and on which I want to elaborate. Nowhere else in the spiritual literature do we find this kind of precise identification of so many states of consciousness, most and many of which are extraordinarily subtle, elevated, yogic states, as a few previous examples illustrate. Whereas Sri Aurobindo's writings are concerned with the highly complex and sophisticated philosophical and psychological system of integrated thought, the mother's approach, as exemplified with her flowers, is much more diverse, concerned with identifying particular unique states of consciousness. It's like she walked through a garden plucking different flowers, each representing a different state of consciousness, and using those flowers to transmit those states to others. Of course, Sri Aurobindo also has vividly described many different states of consciousness in his poetry. And it's also true one could spend one's entire life in the attempt just to realize even a single one of these exceedingly high states of consciousness. Some of them represent what might be considered the goal of spiritual endeavor. For example, she has flowers that were named integral wisdom, supramental knowledge, supramental consciousness, liberation, ananda, realization of the new creation. And other states that she's identified, if they were truly perfected, would lead rapidly to the highest spiritual realizations. For example, integral offering, constant remembrance of the divine, integral opening to the light. But identifying such high yogic states is not in itself a complete system of yoga. So how can the mother's work with the flowers be used as a system of yoga? And one approach could be through an integration with Sri Aurobindo's system. Many of the individual states that she identified can be mapped into Sri Aurobindo's system. For example, there are states associated with particular parts of the being that Sri Aurobindo identified: the mind, the vital, the physical, the psychic, the supermind. And each of these levels of the being are associated with different colors that are symbolic of them. And these colors were central in the mother's naming of flowers. Red typically symbolizes the physical, purple to violet, the vital, yellow, the mind, pink, the psychic, gold, the supermind, and orange, the supermind acting in the physical. And white, an integration of the different levels. So flowers take on different shades of these colors and often have combinations of them. And their significances are typically linked with their colors. And in the mother's flower significances, these different levels of the being take on particular attitudes or qualities, such as surrender, offering, love, beauty, sincerity, aspiration, power, harmony, progress, plasticity, and so on. So the combinations with these different levels of the being are very numerous and quite distinctive. For example, we have flowers named psychic aspiration, mental aspiration, aspiration in the physical. There is psychic offering, offering of the emotions, offering of the vital, offering of the material vital, offering of the most material vital, offering of the physical, combined offering of two parts of the being, and integral offering, depending on their colors. But another way that the mother's work with flowers can be integrated into a system of yoga is by linking it with her own symbol, and by extension with the Matra Mandir. And when we look at the mother's symbol and the Matra Mandir, we see that there is a circle at the center surrounded by 4 petals, which in turn are surrounded by 12 more petals. The shape and organization of the mother's symbol and the Matra Mandir, and even the use of the word petals to describe these outer elements, are reminiscent of a flower. Moreover, we see that the various elements of the symbol are rather directly associated with particular states of consciousness which the mother has identified with particular flowers. And we can therefore organize many of the flower's significances according to the mother's symbol, and we can consider how her symbol can represent a complete system of yoga, while at the same time this organization of the various qualities are combined with the different levels of consciousness: physical, vital, mental, psychic, and supramental. Now the central circle of the mother symbol signifies the mother herself, the divine consciousness force which is behind all existence. Describing the mother, Sri Aurobindo says in his book, The Mother, the following: "The one whom we adore as the mother is the divine conscious force that dominates all existence. One, yet so many-sided that to follow her movement is impossible, even for the quickest mind and for the freest and most vast intelligence. The mother is the consciousness and force of the Supreme, and far above all she creates. But something of her ways can be seen and felt through her embodiments, and the more seizable because more defined and limited temperament and action of the goddess forms in whom she consents to be manifest to her creatures." Now the mother named the white lotus flower Aditi, the divine consciousness. And in her commentary, she described it as pure, immaculate, gloriously powerful. And we can add that Sri Aurobindo has explained that Aditi is the indivisible consciousness, force, and ananda of the Supreme, the Mother, its living dynamis, the supreme love, wisdom, power. So in this flower system of yoga, we say that the Divine Mother is the center. She is the source of all the states of consciousness which we aim to realize, and her grace is also essential in our realization of them. And it's through concentration on the Divine Mother that we can enter into conscious contact with her, and this should be our primary focus. And again, we need to loosen and prepare the soil of our own physical consciousness so that she can take root in it, and we need to nurture our growing consciousness of her presence with care, attention, devotion, mental concentration. And utilizing the Matra Mandir, we can concentrate on her in the inner chamber. And then surrounding the central circle of the mother symbol are the 4 petals, representing the 4 great aspects of the mother. And Sri Aurobindo also describes these in his book, The Mother. He says, 4 great aspects of the mother, 4 of her leading powers and personalities, have stood in front in her guidance of this universe and in her dealings with the terrestrial play. 1 is her personality of calm wideness and sovereign and surpassing majesty and all-ruling greatness. And another embodies her power of splendid strength and irresistible passion, her warrior mood, her overwhelming will, her impetuous swiftness and world-shaking force. A third is vivid and sweet and wonderful, with her deep secret of beauty and harmony and fine rhythm, her intricate and subtle opulence, her compelling attraction and captivating grace. The 4th is equipped with her close and profound capacity of intimate knowledge and careful, flawless work, and quiet and exact perfection in all things. Wisdom, strength, harmony, perfection are their several attributes, and it is these powers that they bring with them into the world, manifest in a human disguise in their vibhutis, and shall found in the divine degree of their ascension in those who can open their earthly nature to the direct and living influence of the Mother. To the 4 we give the 4 great names: Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati. So we see from this passage and from the book in general that there is one original divine power behind the many powers and energies that operate in the earth nature. And this one divine power, the Mother, expresses itself here on earth most prominently through these four basic powers, and through them into many other channels. These four basic powers of wisdom, power, harmony, and perfection are complementary and synergistic. Each may be powerful and great, but would be incomplete and inadequate without the others. Wisdom without power is ineffective. Power without harmony may be despotic and harsh. Beauty and harmony get their fullness when fused with detailed perfection of manifestation. Now, go through some of these four basic powers. There are only a few flowers named with the word wisdom in them, but there are others that are closely related to this aspect of the Mother. For example, equanimity, peace, silence, mental purity, quiet mind, foresight, provision. And for the wisdom flower specifically, she has given these messages. For wisdom, she says, can only be acquired through union with the divine consciousness. Another flower called striving towards integral wisdom, she said, like everything that belongs to the creation, wisdom is progressive. And then another flower, wisdom in the physical mind, she says, is a first step towards the supramental manifestation upon earth. And integral wisdom, the wisdom one obtains through union with the divine. The aspect of power is particularly represented by the hibiscus flowers, which the Mother also associated many of those with Auroville. In many of her first names for some of the hibiscus flowers, she had used the word Auroville, but then later wanted to give them a wider significance and changed the term to new creation. For example, there was the charm of Auroville, renamed as charm of the new creation. There was the manifold power of Auroville, renamed as the manifold power of the new creation. And there was sweetness of Auroville, renamed as sweetness of power surrendered to the divine. Now, flowers representing this power aspect of the Mother include individual power, which she said is limited in its capacity and action. And then enlightened individual power, which she also said is limited in its action, but of a very high capacity. And there is power of the psychic consciousness. And for that she gave the message, psychic power organizes the activities of the nature to make them progress. And there was a flower, power in the converted mind. When the mind turns towards the divine, it becomes a powerful instrument. Power of integral purity, the power of accepting only the divine influence. In the book The Mother, Sri Aurobindo said that Mahalakshmi represents the aspect of harmony and beauty of the thoughts and feelings, beauty and harmony of the life and surroundings. So some of the flowers representing this aspect of the Mother include harmony. And she said, let us work for the day when this will become both the means and the end. And harmony in the vital. To harmonize the vital is a psychological masterpiece. Happy is he who accomplishes it. Harmony in the material vital. No disputes, no quarrels, the sweetness of a life without clashes. An integral harmony. Harmony between things, harmony between persons, harmony of circumstances, and above all, harmony of aspirations, all leading to the supreme truth. There was a flower called collective harmony. Collective harmony is the work undertaken by the divine consciousness. It alone has the power to realize it. And there is the power of beauty. Beauty acquires its power only when it is surrendered to the divine. And finally, the fourth, the aspect of perfection, is nicely represented by the plumeria flower, which he names psychological perfection. And though there are several types and colors which have variations on the name. These flowers have 5 petals, which she also named. And she had an interesting discussion about the naming of these petals in one of her classes at the school, discussing their importance. In her commentary for the flower named psychological perfection, she said, "There is not one psychological perfection, but 5, like the 5 petals of the flower. Sincerity, faith, devotion, aspiration, and surrender." This plumeria is white with some yellow towards the center. Now, 2 of these 5 qualities are represented in the 12 outer petals of the mother symbol, as well as by particular flowers: sincerity and aspiration. The 3 other qualities, which she felt were particularly important, faith, devotion, and surrender, seem to be especially psychic qualities. And these 3 qualities also have flowers named for them, such as faithfulness, trust in the divine, devotion, adoration, surrender, loving surrender, and detailed surrender. In fact, most of the roses have names associated with love for the divine. And the various flowers that she names surrender are all various types of roses. And here are the commentaries she gave to a few of the psychological perfection flowers. Integral psychological perfection, she said, is one of the conditions indispensable for transformation. And there's another flower, perfect psychological perfection. Psychological perfection in all parts of the being. And there's another, supramentalized psychological perfection, for which he said, a psychological perfection aspiring to be divinized. So now I'll just kind of more quickly go through the 12 petals of the mother symbol, as well as the Matra Mandir, giving some examples of the names and brief commentaries that she provided. But first, I simply note that these 12 qualities, again, may be viewed as outward expressions of the mother's force in the world and in us. And that by nurturing these qualities within ourselves, we strengthen her presence and action in us. And like the 4 main aspects of the mother, the 12 are also complementary and synergistic. By strengthening one, the others are also strengthened. And also they should be developed in combination so that our progress doesn't become one-sided. And again, many of the 12 qualities can be manifested on the different levels of our being: the physical, the vital, the mental, the psychic, and the supramental. and also integrally, that is, on all the levels simultaneously. And as I mentioned, these different levels of the being are usually represented by different colors, and many of the flowers have been named according to their combination of one of the 12 qualities with a particular level of being represented by that color. And then the mother's commentaries on these flowers usually add some kind of special, unique significance about that state of consciousness represented by the flower. So, for sincerity, one of the 12 qualities in the mother's symbol and in the Matra Mandir of the outer petals, she has a flower, simple sincerity, for which he said the beginning of all progress. And there's also emotional sincerity, does not try to falsify the emotions. Sincerity in the vital, for which he said the sure way to realization. The next quality, peace. There is a flower, peace, and for which he gave the commentary, to want what you want in every circumstance is the only way to enjoy an unshakable peace. And another flower is called the joy of integral peace. For that she said, calm and tranquil, an unfailing smile. And another flower she named equanimity, and she gave the commentary, immutable peace and calm. The third quality, generosity. There's a flower, generosity, what she gave the commentary, gives and gives without bargaining. There's a psychic generosity, gives for the joy of giving. There's a generosity in the vital, gives itself unstintingly. Another flower is called psychophysical generosity. She said for that, generosity of the thought and act. And there's generosity in the physical, loves abundance and loves to give it. And there's manifold generosity. All in nature is spontaneously generous, she said. Another quality, goodness. There's no flower named goodness, but there is one named goodwill. For that, she said, it's modest in appearance, does not make a show, but is always ready to be useful. And another flower she called benevolence, makes life fragrant without attracting attention. Another quality, courage. There is a flower called courage. For that, she said, bold. It faces all dangers. And another variation on that, integral courage. Whatever the domain, whatever the danger, the attitude remains the same, calm and assured. For progress, the mother has said, give up all personal seeking for comfort, satisfaction, enjoyment, or happiness. Be only a burning fire for progress. Take whatever comes to you as an aid to your progress and immediately make whatever progress is required. There is a flower called progress, and for that she gave the significance, this is why we are on earth. And then there's a few variations. There's uninterrupted but spasmodic progress. Now here, now there, apparently very impulsive. Vital progress, organization around the divine will, and progressive surrender to that will. Integral progress in the vital. The vital consents to be purified. Constant progress in matter, she said, the result of an ardent aspiration. And there's integral progress, can only be satisfied with integrality, the best way to go fast. Another of the 12 qualities is receptivity. About receptivity, Sri Aurobindo has said, it is the power to receive the divine force and to feel its presence and the presence of the mother in it and allow it to work, guiding one's sight and will and action. There is a flower, receptivity, for which the mother gave this message, conscious of the divine will and surrendered to it. There is psychic receptivity. The psychic responds joyfully to the ascending force. Mental receptivity, always ready to learn. Emotional receptivity, emotions wanting to be divinized. Vital receptivity happens only when the vital understands that it must be transformed. The vital blossoms in aspiration to the divine. Physical receptivity. One should have it only towards the divine. Integral receptivity. The whole being perceives the divine will and obeys it. Manifold receptivity. Nothing resists the light. And supramentalized receptivity. The receptivity of tomorrow. These are gladiolas. The last is orange. The next quality, aspiration. Sri Aurobindo has described aspiration as a call to the divine, and that it need not be expressed in words or in thought. It can simply be a feeling within. There is the flower aspiration. Mother gave the commentary, innumerable, obstinate, repeating itself tirelessly. Aspiration for purity. Purity is perfect sincerity, and one can obtain it only when the being is entirely consecrated to the divine. There is triple aspiration, for which he said, love, life, and light, recognizing their master, respond to Satchidananda. There's psychic aspiration, constant, regular, organized, gentle, and patient at the same time. Resists all opposition, overcomes all difficulties. There's mental aspiration, aspiration in the physical for the supramental light, and aspiration in the physical. There is perseverance, another quality. No flower named perseverance, but there are some flowers named or endurance. Going to the end of the effort without fatigue or relaxation. And there's courageous endurance. Strong and energetic, never complains. Psychic endurance. It will smile at life, whatever its difficulties may be. Mental endurance. The difficulty of the problems to be solved will never discourage it. Vital endurance. Whatever the obstacles, we shall always go forward. Integral endurance. It will go on unfailingly till the end of its task. And detailed endurance. Nothing is too small to be neglected. All circumstances are met with the same care. The next quality, gratitude. There's a flower called gratitude. It is you who open all the closed doors and allow the saving grace to enter. And there's detailed gratitude, the gratitude that awakens in us all the details of the divine grace. Mental gratitude, for which he said, the gratitude of the mind for what makes it progress. And integral gratitude, the whole being offers itself to the Lord with absolute trust. And finally, humility. And about humility, the mother has said, it is the recognition that one does not know, that one knows nothing, and that there must be something beyond what presently appears to us as being truest, noblest, most disinterested. True humility consists in referring oneself constantly to the Lord, in placing everything before him. And there is a flower called humility, for which she gave the commentary adorable in its simplicity. So I think that in combination we can kind of organize many of the significances of the flowers according to the system of the 12 qualities of the mother symbol, together with the various levels of the being symbolized by the different colors. Of course, there are many other significances that the mother has given to flowers that don't strictly fall within this framework, though there are many of the qualities that she's given have a close association with these 12. So with that, I'd like to conclude the talk, and if anyone has any questions, I can take those. Yes.
Laura, can you remind me of the two lotuses? There's the white lotus and the pink lotus, and they mother gave different significances to them, and I don't remember.
Yeah, the white lotus, as I mentioned, is a deity, the divine consciousness, so that's the mother's lotus. And the pink lotus is Sri Aurobindo's lotus, the avatar, she calls it.
Avatar manifesto.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.